Welcome to the Successful Life Podcast. I am your host, Corey Barrier, and I am here with my man, Josh Howard. What's up, Josh?
Hey, man. How's it going, Corey?
Good, brother. Good to see you.
You
So
too.
I met Josh at Revolt a few weeks ago, and we just had some really great conversations. We both work in the trades. Josh can tell you about him. Y'all already know about me. So, Josh, tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about RYNO and all that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So again, Corey, thanks for having me on the show, and meeting you at the Revolt retreat was awesome, and just an unreal feeling, and some of the things that happened just definitely won't forget. So again, thanks for having me on the show. But yeah, so I'm a sales manager with RYNO Strategic Solutions. We've been in the home services digital marketing platform for about 15 years now. We specifically work with, again, home services. So very similar to yourself, and working with very similar customers to Corey. So, there we're just, my specific target is working with roofing and solar contractors. And that's actually primarily my background. Went to college for engineering, did that first internship behind a cubicle. I couldn't stop thinking about the sound of my ladder rack, going down the highway and stuff like that. So was doing really good with remodeling sales. Actually was a top sales producer for Storm Ventures Group that won the Storm Conference the last couple of years.
How much did you do?
So the last year I was in sales, I did 3.9 million. And the year before was about 2.5. So and then on volume too. So like, of course, was working some storms and stuff like that, but like average ticket was like 15 grand. And, some of those other guys that are badasses on stage, they, average ticket was like 150,000. And so it was different philosophies on getting there, but it was such an amazing learning experience. And then actually through that same event down in Dallas, that's where I met Chris, the owner of RYNO. And I can't remember if it was one way or the other, but he was coming off stage. I was going on. We just had like a little fist bump or something that simple, you know what I mean? And he's so smart and just observant about things. And he remembered me from that event. And it was just like he would like a story here. I would always like, the RYNO stuff, like his stuff. And then what had happened at that point is he reached out to me and was just like, hey, did you know that we grew up like a half an hour apart kind of thing. So then we even had like a little bit deeper mutual connection. Like we both grew up in the rural parts. Like he was just on one side of the Indiana border and I'm on the Illinois border. So very similar like upbringing is in that regard. And then man, Father's Day, he hit me up and was like, dude, we have this awesome position. We're growing like crazy. Roofing and solar is going to be a huge platform for us. I think you're the guy. So that was like Sunday. We talked for an hour and a half. I think it was Monday night. I flew out and was in Arizona Tuesday, at some of their training. So he moves quick, and it just felt right. And it was just one of those things where like you're questioning, hey, why do I do this? Why do I put all this effort towards social media and trying to develop a brand? And like, am I really having impact? And it was just like, it was a surreal feeling like years of unnoticed work was paying off just for this one individual, like engaging with me and like opening up an opportunity. So that's where we're at right now. And, we're really picking up in roofing and solar and feeling really good about the future. We got some events to, close out the year. I'm sure you'll be at a lot of them with us and stuff like that. But yeah, the phone's ringing and, Jeff and the sales team, we're all doing a good job and we're kicking ass this month. One of our guys, Elliot's just dominating. And
let me ask you this, Josh, so I want to ask you, so I think a lot of people probably want to know, digital marketing, right? That's what we're talking about. That's what the primary thing. You guys do a lot of other stuff, but how challenging has it been for you guys to get leads to people, to find, to be able to say, Mr. Customer, if you put in $1, we're going to give you $3 or $4 back. There's a lot of people that say that. Now, you all are clearly the number one marketing company in the world especially for home services. So clearly you're doing something right. Yeah. How is that? Because it's lots of times I hear people talking about this, but then I also hear horror stories.
Yep. Yeah, so great question. So we really like to think about it as different. So like again, me coming from remodeling sales and owning, residential roofing businesses, I understand that like, before I had got here, before I had other people trying to sell me when I was a consultant for those companies, I looked at everything as like how many leads can you provide? And where I really feel like RYNO is a shining star in the whole digital marketing platforms is just overall transparency. So with us, there's such sophisticated lead tracking, and everything on the back end is just operating like at a full optimized level that like we like to refer to things as opportunities. So there's companies out there that are like trying to give you short-term gratification. Hey, like you give us $2,000 and we're going to give you this many leads. Well, the thing with that is like, is like, what is that, the quality of those leads really? And then also like, what, that's not a very good business model to sustain, like, at some points, like, hey, when your company's organically established and it's known locally, it's known on Google. Yeah. Then we can, ramp up paid advertising in different aspects, and the phone's just naturally going to ring because we're running those type of campaigns. But like with RYNO, I feel like the transparency just is in regards to like, hey, this is truly like even on low end scales, like, hey, just being real with you, like these are the amount of opportunities that we can create. But we're just transparent about like, hey, this is going to be a long-term relationship. We're not trying to be your lead guy. We're trying to truly be your digital marketing partner, and looking for 6 month to years growth with them, rather than like, hey, I need leads for 2 weeks because the phone's not ringing. There's not good business structure in that.
But see that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up because you can't expect to hire a digital marketing company and turn on whatever form of leads they're supposed to be feeding, and it just start feeding you leads overnight that are quality and that you can close. That it takes time because, like you said, you have to do all the other things in order for those leads to be a quality lead and for
Yep.
you to look like a quality or a viable option for that lead. Right? It's
Yep.
not just the lead. And not to mention, guess what? Even if the lead's great, if the lead's bad, it doesn't matter. It's still a lead, and you've got to be able to close the lead. And so
Yep.
that's something that you provide all the information, you provide the quality, you provide the lead for the companies. What happens when they can't close the leads?
Yeah, and that's where the partnership comes in. And actually, like RYNO's not, we'll gladly take anybody's money, like Jeff says sometimes, but like he's sarcastically saying that in the sense like, hey, we can do that like everybody else, but we're really trying to maximize your return on investment. And that's just where like there's those accountability measures with our team, where we're going to have that monthly meeting with them, and anything that we've ran campaigns for, anything that we've developed landing pages, and those calls come through those platforms. The team's listening truly to every call, every second of the call, and it's mind blowing how much information they're able to find out through doing that. Just like when me and you talked the other day about the specific contractor, and the phone's ringing and he's as busy as he can be, but like we're doing all this work and creating these opportunities, but when we're answering 1 out of 40 calls on the first attempt, we need to figure out, like, obviously we need a secretary, and obviously we probably need to look into hiring another salesperson for him. But that's where the accountability and just industry expertise, and then honestly, just like, the leadership with RYNO starts at the top. But when you grow like this, though, it's so important that everybody's trade specific. It's very similar to construction. Like when we try to have roofing guys do siding work, turns into a nightmare, and siding guys are not roofers. It's a different attitude, and it's a different just skill set. And same with digital marketing, like trying to find your friend that's trying to be your website guy, trying to understand truly how PPC works and so forth. There's teams here at RYNO, and that's where everybody's doing their job, and it's an engine running rather than just one person trying to be a workhorse. But really digging into the data is where we're able to help them out long term.
Is it say, and I don't know this for a fact, I don't know it, but and I've listened to a ton of the podcast to the point, which by the way I love it. But let me ask you, so is it safe to assume the reason that that machine works so well is each person on the team knows exactly what they're supposed to do. They have not, when I say one job, not meaning like they come in and they just do one thing every day, but they know that if they're in charge of, if they're in the, I don't know, the SEO department, they know they're just doing SEO. They're not doing Facebook ads. They're not doing website. They're just doing SEO. Is that safe to assume?
Absolutely. And that's where like the leadership and infrastructure is on point with that. Like I've been at other companies, certainly not this large for me, but it becomes a problem when, you know, we use the term like jack of all trades, but like when you're the business owner and you have the sales hat and you have to be the production guy and you have to be the project manager, things become very stressful. And then I feel like they're able to retain employees for a longer period of time. We're celebrating so many 10-year anniversaries right now at RYNO. Like it's just enlightening to know that like people are that happy and we're in that right direction. But I feel like they're able to do that by being mindful of what their duties are. And when you're growing as quick as we are, it's a better infrastructure just saying like, hey, as we get these customers, like this is the funnel that they're going to go through. Everything just has a good process and system there. So I feel like we're able to sustain the growth because sometimes it gets hard. You start growing, like even with roofing, we're seeing it in quick scales. But that's where like the systems and processes are coming through now. And yeah, people get stressed and there's a lot of work, but the team, everybody kind of picks up the slack and it's pretty awesome to watch.
Well, and the important thing about systems and processes are that they're repeatable. If you have a system that works, like my sales system works, I can insert it in just about any company on the planet, and it's going to work as long as there's human beings. Now, will I have to change the language a little bit? Of course, tailor it to the industry naturally. As we mentioned, I work with people in trades, but so I guess where I was going with that, my earbud cut out and I got distracted, if I'm being totally honest. What was I saying? I don't even know what I was saying. We were talking about basically the right people in the right seats on the bus, right? That's what we were talking about, and making sure that everybody understands what their role is in systems and processes. That's where we're going. So that's what I was saying. So without systems and processes, you can't repeat the same thing over and over. But with systems and processes, you know that if I follow steps 1 through 5, 1 through whatever it is, I'm going to get this result. And if I do this same process every time, I'm going to get this result. Without that, people try to scale their business, but what they're doing is they're scaling mediocrity. They're scaling something that's probably going to fail because they haven't perfected it the first time. You have to have systems and processes. You have to.
Yeah. And it's just a good habit, you know, even when you're a $500,000 remodeling company or whatever, just building the habit of doing the little things right. And that's not just like a RYNO statement, but just specifically with remodeling, because it gets so hard because you're so spread out that first, you know, $1.5 million of revenue you're doing. But then again, like we were talking about before we hopped on the show, like then there's that stress of like, hey, we can sell, but now I have to manage people, and that's always new. So, you know, when you can, you know, it's still always effective. Like I've done so much shadowing with Jeff lately, and, you know, he could write everything. He could write a novel for me and I could interpret that one way, but there's still something being said to being that firsthand, just like your customers, you know, you have those monthly calls with them, but there's something different about when you're there for the week with them. And same with Jeff in the training, like they're still hands-on, but like also they're like, even our sales process, like that's where like they do a really good job, that it's the same thing, you know, we're putting in the same address at the end and we're have the same starting point, and just there's always just going to be an alternative route depending on like who the customer is. And I'm trying to practice what I preach on that. It's not as easy as it sounds, but I see what he's doing in a psychological standpoint, and it's awesome. But like just knowing like, hey, we're going to stick to the script more or less. We can come on and off, but like we're still running a process even as salespeople.
But a lot of it, Josh, I think you'll agree with this. A lot of this, you know, when we say sales process, really what that means from my standpoint is you have a product or service that you're offering for a fair price to the customer that you know needs that product or service. And we're not selling the product or service. There's people that are selling stuff is like you're that to me, that means you're cramming something down somebody's throat that they don't want. And that's not what we're talking about here. We're just
Right.
talking about servicing your customer like a human being, which is
Yep.
really hard for a lot of people to do, believe it or not.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, just being cool and being real and like all that stuff just goes such a long way, especially like home services. Like if you understand what's going on and they just know like, hey, you're genuine and like you feel their pain and you know what they're trying to do. Like hell yeah, they're on board. They just want you to be cool and real and understand where they're coming from. And I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah, and that's what that. And honestly, I was talking, and I mentioned Ken a second ago. I was talking to Ken earlier today, and we had the same conversation about, you just, it's not about, you don't have to feel like you got to sell something every time you talk to somebody. You could just try to build a relationship, and all the other stuff will fall into place, right?
Yep.
But people have a hard time with that.
Oh yeah, I think Jeff tells me, once or twice a week, just be focused on helping enough people get what they want, and you'll get what you want. Zig Ziglar on that, and again, kind of cliche quote, but it's so true though. Just making even the meetings like where we're discovering information about them, like, by the time they come to us, they know who we are, especially with their reputation at this point. But in the scheme of things, we're not talking about us. And like you said before, half the time we're not even talking about digital marketing services. It's like, hey, we're all about you. And, we specialize with, companies like yourself. So now it's like, all right, now we just need to have that vibe together and let's figure this out. And even like when you start getting to the objections, it makes it way better because then there's no awkwardness in telling you like no, or like, hey man, like that's just a little bit more than I thought. And then you can just be like, okay, cool. I mean, like, what did you think it was going to be? Like, you know what I mean? And like, it's a simple conversation instead of there being that like tension or even worry about something going kind of gray,
That's such a great point. And a lot, and that's really what you're talking about there. It's setting expectations. And that's vitally important in the sales process because people want to know what's happening. People want to know what the next step is. People don't like surprises. And if you, it's like people when they wait to the very end, if somebody asks you what the price is going to be, now, if you know the price, that's one thing you should tell them because the price is not going to change at the end. It's not. Right. Now, if it's a consulting gig, then you can't give them a price because that's subjective. Everything's subjective with that. Yep. It's a different story. But don't be shady. All I'm saying is like people if you just be honest and treat people the way you want to be treated, everything else will fall into place.
Yep. And then just do some work, get your reps in and like then it turns into a game of numbers just out there doing your, doing the right thing, doing the good thing. And
that's right.
The harder you work, the more it starts falling together and stuff like that too. But yeah.
So let me ask you completely off subject, but what do you think about visualization? Again, completely off subject. What is your thoughts on visualization and how have you used that? Let me give you a bit of context. So whenever I'm trying to do a thing, whatever that is, if it's something that maybe I haven't done before, I try to visualize how that situation is going to play out all the way through. Mm-hmm. And I try to, and then and I visualize it the way I want it to turn out because that only makes sense. Do you, some may think that's woo-woo stuff. I don't know, but what is your thoughts on that?
Oh no, I'm, and we talked about this quite a bit at the Gatlinburg retreat, but no, I'm certainly mindful and, could really go down a rabbit hole with that actually. But the older that I've gotten, the more that I've read and educated myself and became more open-minded just around, psychology and truly just spirituality and mindfulness. I really do feel like, we can have whatever we want, like on Aladdin, for example, the genie and the three wishes, like to some extent, I do believe that like your wish is my command, your wish is my command. But I do think that I have friends that, just being real, like more like when I talk to them, they're very mindful, but the call to action doesn't follow through with what they're saying. They truly believe that they can manifest and believe. And there's a lot of truth to that, very successful people, they all have that. They get a deep conviction in their head that like, hey, I can do this, I can be this. And then subconsciously, what I believe starts happening is, like when we were talking about at the retreat, I went through that divorce and, had the kids a lot and all that stuff. And what I learned from that, I mean, many things, but I would always hear people say, "Hey, you're gonna build character. You're gonna build character." And like 99% of other people, when I initially heard that, when I wasn't as open and mindful at that point, is that like, "Hey, I'm gonna get tough. I'm gonna get tougher. I gotta get into warrior mode," is what I call it for me when I get real heavy in the fourth dimension and aggressive and just think that I can battleship and, um, you know, play chess hard with everybody and including myself. But when I started reading a lot and changing the people that I was following, as far as, certain influencers that I thought I wanted to be like, and then realizing like even in smaller scales, these guys and gals are aligning more with what my heart says and my core values. But I realized that building a character, like, this is my opportunity in life where I am going to be forced to change. And it sucks that that has to happen that way sometimes, where, something tragic has to happen, a death, health issue, financial issue, something of the sort, where you're like, oh my God, I have to change. I was already changing before the divorce happened, but then that was the forcing issue.
Would you
And
mind getting into that, by the way?
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And with all the details, it was one of those situations. Married, we were going on 11 years, and unfortunately, things just started changing. And even realizing now, both of us could have done things different, but it got kind of aggressive for a sense, and had the kids for extended periods of time. And was in that transitional stage of my life where professionally I was shooting for the stars. And I told you, like, at the retreat, I used to always think I was going to show up, with my BlackBerry, speaking out loud, but BlackBerry at the baseball game, 10 minutes late, networking with the parents behind left field fence. And then I actually kind of like had to turn into like a soccer dad in so many levels. So then it was always interesting. Like, my peers would always be stressed out and be upset about not spending time with their family and not seeing their kids every night and those sort of things. And like, I didn't have that problem. I had the opposite problem where I have them a lot. And now I have to figure out how to be a single dad and direct my energy to being the best person I can be there. And then also professionally making the things that happen that I made happen when I could work 10 or 12 hours a day. So that's how that situation ended up panning out. And then the back to the character thing, that's where like Corey was just like, hey man, like, you take all these influencers that you want to be and you start feeding your mind, and what you think is what you become. So I psychologically knew by the books I read and the people that I'd follow, I would tend to want to get in that situation. And then I formed this character, and my energy healer, when she told me this, 2 years ago, she's just like, Josh, you won't even look the same. You won't act the same. The things that bring you happiness now will be different. You'll find your inner child. And, it took 5 to 6 months, but then all that started happening. But closing in on that question, though, yeah, absolutely. I believe whatever we think about is what we can become. And I work with business owners all the time, and the ones that are constantly in a happy vibe and their energy's good and they're doing right and their karma's right, they're tending to attract better things into their life all the time. The people that are doing shady shit and, not doing right at home, that there tends to be a pattern where negativity continues to drop into their world too. And things aren't always perfect. Like, I always use Tony Robbins as example. He goes through crap all the time, left and right, but he's able to change the story in his head so fast that they just constantly look like they're in a state of happiness and positivity. But that's how mindfully strong they are. So again, I told you I could go down a rabbit hole with that one, but I strongly believe that is it's a big part of life. And people get done with high school and they go to a job and they stop thinking and they stop growing. But it's, you get in the system and you get on the hamster wheel, and that's where sometimes you just you encourage people like, hey, take a step off and try to think about being a kid again and chasing what really makes you happy. And I've learned that even making decisions as I've got older that I knew would have some sort of negative repercussion. And before I would feel sorry about myself, like, man, why do I got to go through this? I'm just trying to be a good dad and, you know, a good person. And now I'm like, all right, like, you know, the quote about like, hey, you know, I am the storm. Like, that's what I try to feel like, but I try to be mindful about that.
It feels like lots of times it's like, for me anyway, it's like me against me. I'm really the biggest thing a lot of times that stands in my way, or it's me overthinking. Now I've gotten so much better at this because I figured out, wait a minute, if I overthink something, that's really just wasted time. So just
Yep.
pull the trigger on whatever it is, and guess what? If I screw up, I'll fix it. Like,
Yep.
I'm way better off just pulling the trigger. And you mentioned that about Chris earlier about how quickly he moves, and he's ADHD. I'm ADHD, so I
Yep.
understand. I think you are too. Yeah. So it's really important for people like us to make decisions fast, because if we don't, there's a chance we may not make the decision.
Yep. Yeah. And just like having so much conviction in like everything that you're doing, like you're able to do that quicker too. And that's where, like in his energy, like he knows that he's putting in the work. And you know, like when he's learned to trust his gut. And I think that feeling is so intuitive with him at this point that, like, yeah, you're going to make bad decisions, you know, not bad decisions, but, you know, wrong decisions at times. But that experience comes in, and, you know, you like Indians used to always say, you have three brains. You have your brain, and you have your brain in your heart, and you have your brain in your stomach. And when you can fully understand what's going on around you, you know which brain to use at what time. And like on that, like I you know, not saying I was like the perfect fit, even though I do feel like, you know, I am for this. It was just mind blowing, man. I never in a million years would have thought like, hey man, you're cool as hell. Like, we're about to do this. Like, you know, if you can make it happen, great. If not, I understand. And, you know, the rest has been history.
So let me ask you something. So at that time, would you say that whenever that happened, you were past that 6 month shift that you were just speaking about, right? Your mind had
Oh,
shifted, because there's no way that opportunity would have happened if you're.
yeah. Yeah, this is gonna sound like a wizard talking, so fill me out on this, you know. But like, I manifested this situation into existence, like a little bit subconsciously, but um, like, yeah, there was hope, you know, as I'm reaching out to Chris, that like I just never know how I'm gonna collaborate with you, but like I know that you're about to be a big name in roofing, and you speak really well, and people, you know, like you speaking, and it's engaging. So I don't know how I'm going to collaborate with you. And this is where sometimes like you just have to trust in God. Like he's going to give you what you're asking for, but sometimes it's not always the way that you had foreseen it to be. And that's how this happened. I, you know, honest to God, when I started collaborating with him, I'm just like, hey, I'm going to be a sales consultant for remodeling. And, you know, like maybe I could just do some, like, open a show for Chris, or like honestly just do a video with him, you know, or something like that. So that's how crazy it is, like thinking that. And that's back in January, February. Like I barely knew him before then. And then, but the more that you think about something, the more expedited. That's why they say like prayer, you know, like at the Revolt retreat, when that many people come together, even for like the team break, like there's a feeling to it because so many people are in that same frequency level, you know? So it was nuts, but like not being creepy or nothing, man. Like with the whole thing with Chris, like he was thinking about it somewhat too. And that's why I think that maybe he was like at least liking a story here and there. And he didn't know how it was going to happen either, but you had two, you know, people that wanted something, and like we were just both kind of thinking about it. And I just, you know, honestly, I feel blessed every day.
You know something? It was interesting. You said something, and thank you for that. That's awesome. Awesome. So you said that you all were basically aligned, right? That's essentially what happened. And the next thing that you said was you didn't know the how. Here, and I think that's so important, because lots of times we try to figure out the how. How is this
Yep.
going to work? How? What are the steps? How? Just like lots of times, if you just try to figure out the how, and you just figure out why you're doing the thing, you're going to have a better result.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just when you're happy, you know, like truly, when you're doing something and you're happy every day, like that's just when you're not worried about what's coming next. You just know whatever's coming's coming. And then, you know, the harder that you work, and you do amazing at networking. So you understand like it's a game of numbers, but it's also just like the more right stuff I'm going to do, the more people that you're going to meet that are like-minded and so forth. And so the whole knowing how I was going to work with, Chris and RYNO was irrelevant. Like, cause I never thought I was going to be a national sales manager. Like, I never thought like I was going to necessarily work at RYNO. Even, I just knew that like, man, I'm intrigued as hell by this guy. I actually sent Chris. So when I started, I have this notebook diary, whatever you want to call it. So I start a new one every year. It's like 200 pages, and I just have miscellaneous notes all the time, branding, social media, whatever. And I sent Chris like 3 weeks after I started. I was going back through that, just circling around to some digital marketing notes I had. And Chris was like on one of my mentor lists. And again, this is before me and him ever started talking. Like, so it's just creepy, like how that happened. You know what I mean? And then like, I just kept thinking like, man, Chris knows Gary Vee. Like, I love freaking Gary Vee. Everybody loves Gary Vee, and I'm just like, man, that's when in my head, I kept just thinking like, long term, I've been an independent contractor for so long. I know the quote about, becoming like the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And again, I just didn't know how that was going to look, but I just, I almost thought I was going to be a vendor for them in some sort of weird way, but this couldn't have worked out any better. So, but yeah, there was no plan or want. And the key is like getting comfortable with not knowing, because when you're trying to figure it out, yeah, you can plan and you can strategize. Like, I'll catch myself not listening to music in the, the Tahoe for days at a time. Because I'm thinking in 3-dimensional chess too. Like, hey, if I do this, they're going to do this, but what am I going to do after that? But sometimes the best things are happening around me when I'm just being, like just enjoying life and taking it all in.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes how many things we miss by, not being present. I think, I know I'm certainly guilty of that.
No.
Yeah, lots of times, and here's the reason I say that is because we have opportunities around us all the time. But and a friend of mine pointed this out the other day, and this is getting kind of back to the little bit woo woo. But if you think about, if you not in a manifest scenario, so let's just kind of deviate from that for a quick second. But if you think about like, I want to go do this, let's just pretend that you said I want to be a vendor for Chris, and that was your goal, and that was your sole intention, you would have completely missed this whole opportunity because you wouldn't have been able to see it because you wouldn't have been paying attention. You would have been thinking about what you wanted.
Yep.
Right?
Oh yeah, you're so right. Yep. And that's what I originally thought. You're right. And if I would have been sold on that, I wouldn't have been as excited. I wouldn't have taken the opportunity as quick as I did. Yeah, you're 100% right on that.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's in the way he explained it. It's like, think about this. Like when you look forward to, let's just continue this example. When you look towards, I want to be a vendor, then you collapse everything else around it, right? You collapse all the other opportunities because you only focused on that one. And I've been guilty of that for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. And this is on this one that like if Chris was listening to this or whatever, like he would laugh, but truly like my, goal was to get his attention and at some point and with no intention, if that makes sense. Like
totally makes sense.
Yeah. Just no intention. Just like, hey, like you're a big dog and you're a shark. And like, I want to swim with you somewhere and I'll follow you, So yeah, that's awesome, man. Good analogy on that.
Here's what a lot of people do. Here's what a lot of people would have done in your situation. Hey, Chris, how can I add value to your life? Which is the stupidest question on the planet, because now what you're asking the dude's super freaking busy is to figure out how you can help him. It's not, and collaborating with somebody is a different story. That's saying, hey, we both know there's a fit. Let's talk about it.
Yep.
But if you just ask somebody to say, how can I help you? Well, now you're requiring me to use up my energy to think about how you can help. And like, how far do you think that goes in my brain when somebody asks me that?
Yeah.
Not very far.
Oh yeah. And his brain's, very similar. It's moving so fast that like, like the engagement has to count. Like, truly, like even now, like, he's so on it. And I mean, like he's cool and chill, but it's business. And like, if we're talking business, like, hey, just get to the point and let's get it solved. Like always, you know what I mean? He's always just taking care of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So all right, you guys have now you guys have. Can you talk a little bit about? Because I've heard Chris talk about this a lot. The Rhino X. I don't. I know it's a really small event, right? Is it coming up, or is that an old podcast I probably listened to?
Oh no, they do something every year. I don't have any of the details about it now or anything like that, but yeah, yep, they do something every year.
And it's a private thing, right? With
Yeah,
just
yeah, it's just
invite.
yeah, invite private. Pretty crazy times from what I hear though, and they've had some great speakers. I think like I think on Jeff's laptop screensaver, it's like him and Mike Tyson. Chris is pretty athletic and into sports. And we had Larry Fitzgerald, and um, so I'll give RYNO this, man. When they have an event or something, they don't spare any expense. They have a good time. Like we're the VIP sponsor at that RIFCon event coming up, and with our guys over there and stuff like that. And
That's gonna
like
be cool.
everybody's excited, but everybody I talk to is also like, hey man, I can't wait to get for the VIP again. And but yeah,
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing at RoofCon.
yeah, so we're Chris is actually going to be the main stage speaker again, and this is really one of those just opportunities that like Jeff has done such a great job over the years working with them, and you saw that at the retreat. Like he's synonymous when it comes to marketing, and then I feel like just with his personality and stuff like that, I could tell a lot of people and individual advice and stuff like that were coming to him, but with the relationship that him and Chris have built, we have an amazing relationship with them to where the point where like I feel like when they give us a genuine referral, they're calling, and Jeff's converting them pretty good. So so we do have a big booth set up, one of the main ones just right next to where they'll be at. Jeff will be doing breakout sessions, and then again Chris will be speaking, and then we'll have the VIP party there. But yeah, there's we got that. We got the Storm Ventures coming up in March.
Oh, that's right.
That'll be a big one for us. Dimitri, he's got his stuff out in Vegas going on, and then we've actually been working with some potentially new partners as well. So we may hop into a couple more events that we haven't had scheduled. That's we're getting really excited on that. We've been since we got back from Revolt, we've really been networking out, and Chris had a good opportunity that he had passed over, and now he's back spearheading, and I'm feeling really good that we got something good in the making too. So a lot of things are coming together at the right time. But yeah, those roofing conferences are one of our number one lead generator. I mean, that in the podcast, that's what gets the phone ringing and builds the brand and the credibility. So yeah, we're looking forward to that RIFCon event though, for sure.
It's gonna be cool. I'm looking forward to it too. And Hunter, obviously we got to we talked Hunter at the thing.
Yep.
Hunter's such a good guy, and I think people probably support Hunter because and Chris for that matter, because they are genuine people. Like they're just good people, and you could just tell that.
Yeah, it had a different vibe there. Like I've been to a lot of roofing events, and all of them are very educational, and networking is powerful in their own different ways. But very few in the industry, and that's where like I feel like there's a gap missing. Like we're so synonymous with blue collar, and we're rough, and we're all those sort of things. Like I feel like the RoofCon guys and gals, they do a really good job at like, hey, let's talk about business, but also like let's take a step aside here, and let's talk personally about what's going on. Because if they say like, hey, if you look good and you feel good, you are good or whatever. The same thing, like if you're everything's going good personally, the business is usually running pretty good. And then sometimes what happens when the business is running really well personally, life sucks. So like I feel like they understand that there is a balance. And the other interesting thing was, a lot of conferences and stuff that you'll go to, people are like, hey, I want to scale and I want to be $20 million. I really appreciate it and respect it in some aspects that there's companies there saying like, hey, my ultimate goal would be to get to $3 to $4 million. I'm still active. I have, a couple of salespeople that are my friends, but our quality of life's good. And I feel like that was something, a powerful message that I feel like everybody that left there, certainly still sticking with me hard. But I'm sure a lot of people feel the same.
It was relatable, I think, is what at the end of the day it was. They were relatable, and everybody you're right. You're absolutely right. It wasn't these big, astronomical numbers. Now, don't get me wrong. There's people there doing big
Yeah.
numbers.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know, like Brian Ward over there, and like Quality Roofing Florida. Like, yeah, man, he's a big dog, for sure. But it was awesome, even with him. Like, he had one of the best stories about one of his salesmen. And again, the moral of the story was it didn't boil down to money with that individual. It was all about the trust and the love, and that guy was a major producer, and that was pretty cool for Brian to say that, because you get into companies that large, you just think like everything's dollars and cents, and it wasn't. It was just the genuine feel of the company, the culture, and just the trust that they had for each other. So that was cool too. But yeah, just being able to step aside from the work and just the vendor talk and sales talk even, and just like, hey, like, we're men, and like, we're all going through some shit, and if we can be here for each other, right now and then after, there's something to be said about that. And being 34 and feeling like you kind of went to an all guys retreat, like, that's pretty cool, minus the knee thing.
Right. Did have a minor slip up on that.
No, not a minor, man. 2 tore ligaments.
Oh, so I was right.
Yeah.
How about that?
One on each side. So
Dang,
6 to 8 weeks, and I got this like ugly cast, but it's all good. Like, I've been able to like go to the gym, kind of hopping around. I'm like, gonna make sure like I don't get like that SpongeBob guy where he's lifting and his legs are all small and his upper body turns huge or anything. But yeah, 6 to 8 weeks, man, sucks.
Wow, dude, that's crazy. So yeah, so we were playing football, which, look, I gotta tell you, like, the chemistry between you and Jeff, you would have thought like you guys have known each other for the last 30 years. Like,
Awesome.
I went back and watched that video. I showed my wife a video, and I'm watching, and I'm like, you could just see the kid. And obviously, I saw it that day. But if you go back and look at the video, you and Jeff connected, I think, more than anybody else on the video, which is fascinating.
No, and we spend a lot of time together for, him living in Virginia Beach and me living in downstate Illinois. But that's where like there's a sense of, he holds me accountable, almost like a family member at some points. Like, that's how quick but like real the relationship is. And like, he likes to give me a hard time, but like at the end of the day, I can genuinely care. I can see and observe that like he wants to have an impact on my life. He knows where I'm at 34 versus his age. And honestly, like I talk to him about personal things like I would you, and professionally, like, it's amazing. But like how it is. Sometimes you could tend, just like with kids, you could get stressed out, you could get angry and stuff like that. And I could truly see that like he genuinely cares, and he's also excited. Like, hey, you got potential. You're fitting the vibe here. Like, this is great. But it's like even we're even like a little bit past like a friend relationship at some points. Like with some of the deepest things that I'm going through, like he's there to talk about it. And but then it's also cool. Like I feel like he's one of my friends, and he's so active and stuff like that too. And honestly, like personality wise, we actually have a lot in common. Like there was a night we were in Daytona Beach together, and it's all cool, man. Like I'll go out with people and have that one night where I can get a little squirrely or whatever. But really, for the most part, that's not me. Like I was telling you that at the retreat, like I just I keep it 100 my own way. But Jeff and I went to Dave and Buster's, and I mean, when I say we played basketball, man, I mean like not just past like your whole shirt is sweaty, but I'm talking like your arms hurt from shooting so much kind of thing, So then after like we got a water, and then went back and watched The Office at like so like me and him vibe out like the same, you know what I mean? And we kind of have like the same sense of humor where it's kind of like dark and witty, and like with him it's so cool because it's he's so funny when somebody like him doesn't try to be funny, and then they're just
yes,
you're just like, dude, you're really smart but funny. But yeah, no, we got a good thing going on, and I look up to him a lot.
Dude, I think you're really lucky to have Jeff, as, somebody that can help, that can kind of, well, I think having Jeff as a mentor is really cool. Jeff's super smart, and he's, if you're in Jeff's circle, you're in Jeff's circle.
Yeah.
Right. If you're out of Jeff's circle, my guess is you're out of Jeff's circle.
Yeah.
But when you're in, he's a genuinely good dude. And I think that's amazing that you have that opportunity to work with him. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that because, like I said, I look up to him a lot, and I know big picture wise, the more mature I've got just being a man over the years, that like you don't build very many relationships like outside of professionalism, at this age. And like I do feel like I have something really special with him that I cherish already. And then it feels good to learn again. Like I said, just getting out of school, and then people don't learn, they just go work, and that's it. Like it's exciting, and you feel youthful again and stuff like that. Now I'm realizing that he's his age, and he's a beast, man. Like getting around like that, like I mean, you think he's 21 years old.
Dude, seeing him run up and down that freaking football, I was like, where does this guy come from?
Like, he's running like 5-minute miles and stuff like that. Like he's just, he's on another one.
That's so funny. Well, Josh, look, man, I really appreciate you coming on today, and this has been such a cool conversation. Is there anything that, if somebody is looking, obviously wherever they can find you, but also, if people are looking for your services, what specifically, can you tell everybody again what it is? Because you're now with the roofing and solar, right?
Yep.
So yeah, go for it.
No, just, feel free to reach out. Like I've been in, roofing sales. I've been in roofing, business ownership and stuff like that. And I've spent my whole life. So I totally get it, how it feels when somebody's coming onto your business that's already doing good, or you have stress going on and stuff like that. But, just being real, like we're super easy to talk to. We're not very high pressure sales or anything like that. And we're very selective with who we work with too. So we're just not going after everybody out there. We want to work with the right people. And I've been doing this for a long time, and there just isn't another RYNO out there, truly, with our capabilities and with our team infrastructure, that can really help grow and scale your business. And that has a team that, we're just not going to say, hey, this is, what we're going to do. We're going to be able to walk the walk and talk the talk, and not getting too ahead of myself right now. But I truly feel like, by the end of this year, early quarter next year and stuff like that, like we're going to be more on the map. We're going to be more in demand. And, I think if you're a contractor out there right now and, you've been in a little stagnant situation, you get on the call, get on a little call with us, may be a good fit and may not be a good fit. But, I do see what we're doing with some of these other contractors and the growth sustainability, what it's looked like. And, it's looking good. So, we'd love to talk to you more.
Yeah. And I can, I'm not just saying this because you're on here, but I had a meeting with both you and Jeff. Like what he just said was absolutely true. Zero pressure, zero. Like it's, again, we started this call with this exact thing. Like sales is not about pressure and forcing people to do stuff they don't want to do. It's about helping people with what they need. Simple.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's all we're trying to do. We're just trying to help you out, and we do this for a living. We specialize working with you guys. There just isn't anybody out there like us right now.
Yeah. Well, Josh, where can they find you?
We're all over Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm at Findaway 217 on social media. But yeah, definitely check out To The Point Home Services Podcast. It's rocking and rolling. And then, make sure you give our YouTube and Facebook, share and like. And so, yep.
All right. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
All right, Corey. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.